Cruz faring much better in Utah. He brought in nearly 70% of the votes, awarding him all 40 of the available delegates in Utah. Senator, good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Maria. Thank you for having me.
Congratulations on Utah. Let me get your thoughts, and you characterize what you saw last night.
Well, last night was a terrific victory. You know, in Utah, we had been hoping to break 50%. At 50%, you get all of the delegates. And we ended up blowing past that. We saw a landslide victory, 69%, nearly 70% of the vote. And I think it's really indicative of what we're seeing nationwide, which is we are seeing Republicans uniting behind our campaign. Utah was now the 10th state across the country where we've beaten Donald Trump, and we are the only campaign that has beaten Donald Trump over and over again and that has a clear path to beating him, winning the nomination, and going forward and defeating Hillary Clinton.
I want to ask you more about that clear path, because I know Wisconsin is coming up, and that's got really an important one for you.
Critical.
But this morning you got some big news from Jeb Bush, an endorsement from Jeb Bush. How important was the former governor of Florida endorsing you?
Well, tremendously important. Governor Bush is a good man, and I'm very grateful for his endorsement. And I think his endorsement is indicative of what we're seeing, which is Republicans unifying, coming together. You know, in the last 10 days, our campaign has been supported by Jeb Bush, Mitt Romney, Mike Lee, and Mark Levin. Now, you want to talk about a broad ideological spectrum, runs the entire gamut across the Republican spectrum. And what we're seeing is, you know, 65 to 70% of Republicans nationwide recognize Donald Trump is not the best candidate to go head-to-head against Hillary Clinton, that Donald loses to Hillary. I beat Hillary. And that's why we're seeing Republicans coming together and unifying. It's what led to our landslide victory in Utah, and it's what puts us in a very, very strong position going forward.
And of course, the issue around immigration has been so critical. I want to turn to Brussels for a moment, because we're following reports this morning that someone involved in yesterday's bombing has been arrested. We don't know if it's that third individual that was walking around carts in the airport yesterday, but there were reports that this bomber in the video that he was captured first, and those reports were retracted. Your thoughts on this investigation so far and how they are approaching taking down these individuals?
You know, I will say all of us, our thoughts and prayers are with those who were murdered, those who were wounded in this terrorist attack in Brussels, and especially with the 3 Americans, the Mormon missionaries who were wounded in this attack. And I think this attack really underscores the threat we face from radical Islamic terrorism. This was not a lone wolf. It was not an isolated attack. We are facing global jihad from ISIS and radical Islamic terrorism. And I think people across this country are fed up with President Obama and Hillary Clinton and the modern Democratic Party that is so captive to political correctness that they won't even say the words radical Islamic terrorism. Indeed, following the Paris attacks, following San Bernardino, President Obama predictably goes on television and lectures Americans on Islamophobia. We need a commander-in-chief whose first priority is keeping America safe. If I am commander-in-chief, we will utterly destroy ISIS. We're going to defeat radical Islamic terrorism, and we're going to end this ostrich head in the sand political correctness that refuses to acknowledge our enemy, to identify it, or do what's necessary to defeat it.
And it's the approach that really is being debated. So you had some comments yesterday that were criticized. I want to get to those comments because there's a debate about it. You said that it's time for law enforcement to, quote, patrol and secure Muslim neighborhoods become radicalized. People had a problem with that. So, patrol and secure Muslim neighborhoods, as if saying all Muslims are radical.
We need to use proactive policing, and we need to use national security and intelligence assets to stop radical Islamic terrorism. And, you know, if you look at the city of New York under Mayor Bloomberg, had a program that worked actively, cooperatively with the Muslim community to go in and prevent radicalization and to identify and stop radical Islamic terrorist plots before they're carried out. Now, Mayor de Blasio, in a predictable act of political correctness, canceled that program.
He took the police out of these areas and out of the mosques.
And you're not benefiting anybody by refusing to acknowledge what you're facing. We need to be combating it. You know, to use an analogy, if you're concerned about gang violence, you naturally direct law enforcement resources to neighborhoods, communities where there's a high prevalence of gang violence. And you go into the communities, you work with the communities to take the gang members off the street. And I would note the victims of gang violence are the citizens of those communities. They're often African American or Hispanics who are victimized, who are assaulted, who are murdered by gang violence. Likewise, if you look at Muslim communities, radical Islamic terrorists, they don't just murder Christians and Jews, they murder fellow Muslims as well. And we need to stop ignoring the problem, stop justifying the problem. We need to focus on Islamism. Islamism is a political and theocratic philosophy that commands its adherents to murder infidels, which they define as everybody else, or violently convert them and subject them to Sharia law. And we need a focused and direct approach from law enforcement, from national security and the military, and especially ISIS. As long as ISIS continues to thrive, these attacks will continue and grow, and we'll see more attacks.
Appreciate your position from Donald Trump's position, because I feel like when Donald Trump first called for a temporary ban on Muslims from entering the United States, everybody looked at him and said, this guy is nuts. You can't ban all Muslims. And then yesterday you said, you know, we need to immediately halt the flow of refugees from countries with a significant al-Qaeda or ISIS presence. I feel like now most people are agreeing with what Donald Trump said initially.
Well, you know, Donald uses a lot of hot and angry rhetoric. Donald's approach to every problem is to yell and scream and curse. But he doesn't actually have real solutions to fixing the problems. So, for example, Donald has said multiple times that he intends, if he were president, to be neutral between Israel and the Palestinians. Now, that statement reflects an astonishing lack of understanding that Israel and the Palestinians are not the same situation. If you look at the radical Islamic terrorists in Hamas that are part of the Palestinian Authority in a unity government, they are murdering citizens, and no one who understands the situation wants to be neutral between the IDF forces that are protecting innocent citizens in Israel and the terrorists who are celebrating, who are inciting violence, who are compensating the terrorists. Likewise, you know, 2 days ago, Donald Trump called for effectively America withdrawing from NATO. 1 day later, we saw this Brussels attack, obviously where NATO is headquartered. Withdrawing from NATO would be a catastrophic mistake. It would hand Putin a massive victory. It would hand ISIS a massive victory. And Donald's foreign policy is a foreign policy of weakness and isolationism, withdrawing from the world. We need to be standing with our friends in Europe. We need to be standing with Israel, not withdrawing and showing weakness. And Donald, you know, it is striking that Donald's foreign policy is to the left of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. Even they advocate withdrawing from NATO, and yet Trump wants to essentially preemptively surrender.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I was going to bring it up because his comments yesterday are being really debated and criticized as well on NATO. Let me ask you about this fight with you and Donald Trump over the wives. I mean, what is this all about? A super PAC that supports your campaign initially posted this picture of Donald Trump's wife, Melania. He got very upset by that, and Donald Trump responded. There's the Melania tweet, the Melania picture from a super PAC, and Donald Trump is saying on Twitter, be careful, Ted, or I will spill the beans on your wife. Then he said, if you try to attack Heidi, you are more a coward than I thought. You said that in response. What is he trying to say about your wife?
Well, look, first of all, the group that sent out that tweet about Donald's wife, it's not our super PAC. I don't know the people. We have no connection with them.
And you can't control that.
No, we can't control them. And I've never had a conversation. As far as I know, no one on my team has ever had a conversation with them. They're totally separate. It's not, we do have super PACs supporting us. That's not one of them. It's totally separate and unrelated to us. But, you know, Donald's approach, when he's scared, when he's threatened, when he's rattled, he inevitably starts yelling and screaming and insulting people and often cursing. And Donald is a bully. That's how he approaches people. So he immediately threatened my wife. I got to say, Heidi is the daughter of Christian missionaries. She lived in Africa as a little girl. Heidi is my best friend in the whole world. She's an incredible mom. And I would say to Donald Trump, if you want a character fight, stick with me, because Heidi is way out of your league.
She's lovely, and we've had her on the show, and we send her our best. Your tax plan. Got to talk about the economy for a moment, because Art Laffer says it's the best tax plan out there. Why does lower taxes create jobs? What's the 411 on your tax plan?
Well, look. Cause and effect. If you want economic growth, small businesses are the heart of our economy. 2/3 of all new jobs come from small businesses. When you do what we've done the last 7 years, when you hammer small businesses with taxes and regulation, you get the stagnation and misery and malaise we've seen. On the alternative, when you lift the burdens on small businesses, when you lift the taxes, when you lift the regulations, you see incredible economic growth. Now, my tax plan is a simple flat tax. So for a typical family of four, first $36,000 you earn, you pay nothing. No income tax, no payroll tax, no nothing. Above $36,000, everyone pays the same simple, flat 10%. No longer do you have hedge fund billionaires paying a lower effective tax rate than their secretaries. Everyone pays the same. You fill out your taxes on a postcard. And we actually have the postcard on our website, tedcruz.org. You can see the real postcard. And when we do that, we abolish the IRS. On the business side, we eliminate the corporate income tax, we eliminate the payroll tax, we eliminate the Obamacare taxes, and we eliminate the death tax.
Right.
Replace all of them with a simple 16% business flat tax that's fair and uniform. The effect of this will be to produce nearly 5 million jobs, to raise wages for everyone, to produce economic growth. And economic growth is the key to solving every other problem we've got.
That was great analysis. That we got to jump to Europe and a press conference, but Wisconsin's super important for you.
Tremendously important.
How are you feeling ahead of Wisconsin, and does that lead to your contested convention, which is what you need?
Well, Wisconsin is in 2 weeks. I'm flying to Wisconsin today. We got great support on the ground. And actually, our first path is to win 1,237 delegates before the convention, and we've got a direct path to doing so. Yesterday's win in Utah was a big step. And as long as Republicans continue to unite behind our campaign, we will beat Donald Trump either by getting 1,237 before the convention, or if both of us come into the convention with a bunch of delegates short of 1,237, we win by continuing. Because Donald Trump loses to Hillary Clinton, and I beat Hillary.
Senator, good to have you on the program.
Thank you, Maria.
We'll be watching the path.